Okay, so these are the servos I'm going to be installing into my machine. These are Futaba BLS 351s, digital brushless servos, and I'll take you through the process of installing these into the frames. Okay, what I've got here is the little carbon tabs that are used to mount the servos, and literally these threaded screws go through those like that, and then they go through the servo tabs and bolt the servos into the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and install the 3 cyclic servos into the frame, and then we can take a look at that. Okay, here's our right hand side frame with the cyclic servos installed. As you can see, the front servo, we have the output shaft at the top, and the rear servo, this is the elevator servo effectively, the output shaft is at the bottom. The manual actually shows this incorrect with the output shaft at the top here, so be careful you don't do that, because you want these 2 output shafts in line with your control horns at the back here, and if you mount this the other way up, the output shaft is up here and you're going to be having rods running at a strange angle down to the elevator control horn. So that one goes the output shaft down, the front one's the output shaft up, and if I just flick this frame over, I'll show you the opposite side. There we go, and that's the left hand side of the frames now, and again the servo mounted with the output shaft at the top for the aileron control horn, which is further back here, and you can see the shaft in line with the control horn. So that's the cyclic servos. Next we need to install the tail servo and the throttle servo. So for the throttle and tail servo, we're actually screwing into the little metal mounts that we installed into the frames, and so we've now gone away from self-tapping screws to these cap-headed bolts, but we're still using the same carbon tabs to bolt through to hold the servos in place. So I'll just show you the servos I'm installing for throttle and tail. Okay, so here's the throttle and tail servo. For the throttle, I'm using a D751MG InnerLab servo. I just happen to have one of these available. This is a cordless high torque digital servo. It's probably way over powerful for a throttle servo, but it'll do the job. And then for the tail, I'm using an Align DS620. This is just a fast tail servo, and again this is one that I had spare, so I'm just using that. Okay, so there's our throttle servo installed, output shaft to the top, so it's nicely in line with our throttle here on the engine. And then on the opposite side, let's get this into down the bottom here, you can see our tail servo installed, and the output shaft is up towards the clutch bell here, and again Loctite on these screws used to hold it in place, and the same for the throttle servo. And that's the servos installed, so it's now a case of putting the discs on these and setting up the control rods. Okay, I've fitted horns to all the servos now and installed balls on the various horns where required. This is the throttle servo showing you at the moment, which is the InnerLab. I've got a star horn on there, the ball's mounted on the throttle linkage here and on the star horn. Then if I switch over on the other side, I've got the tail servo. So there you can see the tail servo with the ball mounted on it. And then for the cyclic servos, I ran into a problem. The manual talks about having 29mm distance between the balls, but I didn't have any circular horns that would give me that size. The only circular servo horns I got were absolutely massive, and they actually interfered with each other when put on here. So I've used star horns again. These give me a 27mm gap, so it's just over 27mm actually, but it's close enough for me. So I'm just using these star horns. I just don't have suitable horns as the manual suggests, and the balls are mounted on those, as you can see, and the same for the one servo. The other side, there we go, is our other aileron servo at the back there. So that's all of the linkages and balls installed onto the servos. We've now got to make up the linkage rods, so I'll show you that next. Okay, so I've just popped out the rods from the packaging, and in fact there are 3 missing here, so let me just add the final 3 in here so you can see those as well. There we go, final 3. And basically what these rods equate to are, these are on one of the front servos for effectively aileron. These are one of the front servos, the one that's slightly closer to the back of the machine, for aileron. These ones are the elevator linkage, which is the rearmost cyclic servo. This is the throttle linkage, and then these 3 here are what go from the bell cranks up to the swash plate. So those 3 there we don't need at this point, because we're just doing the linkages for the servos themselves. And the manual gives you lengths for these, so I'm now going to fit these up with the requisite ball links, and we can then install them onto the machine. Okay, what we have here is the completed throttle linkage. I've installed an OS50 Hyper in my machine. The manual says that the distance between these 2 points here and here should be 56mm for the throttle linkage. For an OS50 this gap is 48mm. Just quickly check that. Yeah, 48mm, and that gives me a perfect geometry on the throttle linkage. Okay, and there you can see that rod fitted, and the 2 horns nice and vertical. So I'll now move on to the cyclic servos. Okay, here we have the front cyclic rod. There are 2 of these, but I'm just showing you one here. The gap in the manual is 108mm, and that is exactly right for that particular rod, so spot on that one. Okay, this is the rod for the servo, second one back from the front of the machine, an aileron cyclic CCPM servo. The linkage length in the manual is 87mm from here to here, and as expected that's spot on, so that can be fitted to the machine with the, I've already fitted the other rod, but that one can now be fitted to the machine. And this is the elevator linkage. Manual says 56mm for this one, and 56mm is also spot on. Okay, so now we can see the control rod's mounted. That's one side, throttle down there, and then the control rod's the other side. Okay, so now we move on to the tail assembly.